Welcome everyone watching on TG's Facebook page to another edition of Agent Matters, our weekly catch-up with agent bosses around the UK and Ireland on how their businesses are adapting and reacting to the coronavirus crisis. Today it's a return to the cruise sector. We've got three fantastic panellists, really knowledgeable and really know their stuff in the sector inside out. They met around, I want to say sort of 6 or 7 weeks ago to discuss how things were initially, but things have gone a lot sort of different from there in many ways. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Edwina Lonsdale of Monday Cruising. Edwina, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
Fantastic. Paul Hardwick of Fred Olsen Travel. Paul, how are you?
I'm very good, Tom. Nice to see you.
And over in Dublin, we have Mary McKenna from Tour America and Cruise Holidays. Mary, how are you doing?
Great, and hello everybody from sunny Dublin. I hope it's sunny in the UK.
I was going to say, it's not too bad. It's looking good. It's looking good. Thank you all for joining me. Because it does feel like a lifetime ago, doesn't it, since we last spoke. I wanted to sort of start by asking how everyone's been doing, really, and what sort of the big differences have been since sort of we last spoke sort of seven weeks ago. Edwina, would you like to sort of kick things off?
Yeah. So actually feeling pretty positive. We've had quite a good May. If it weren't for the cancellations, we'd be quite pleased, but we're certainly seeing some new business coming in and quite a lot of interest amongst our regulars, certainly ready now to rebook. Obviously, we've had the frustrations, as everyone has, with the constant trying to get your refunds in from various suppliers and what that leads to in terms of your relationships with your clients. And of course, we're all in the business of troubleshooting for our clients and making everything right. We're used to solving problems. We're used to making things right for them. And to be in a situation where we can't always do that it's demoralizing, of course, for all of us. So we felt that our job is to ensure that our teams are not too demoralized and that they're able to continue to be very positive and cheerful in terms of their relationships with our clients, that our clients have the confidence that things are going to change and that there's a future out there. And the other thing we've really welcomed has been the way in which the cruise industry has really grabbed this and started very early on to talk about how they're going to operate and really put huge resources behind it. They've been very collaborative. I'm just feeling very proud actually to be in cruise at the moment.
Oh, it's a nice way to kick off. Nice sort of positive tones there, and yeah, we'll definitely talk more about sort of the health and hygiene side sort of going forward. Paul, has it been the same for you guys at Fred Olsen Travel? Is it a case of just sort of getting through the stuff that needs to get through, but staying positive for future weeks and months?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the refunds has been the biggest challenge. The communication with the customers, the messaging's vital in terms of getting that across. I think last time I counted, we're up to about 1,600 affected bookings between our retail shops that we've got. And sort of probably only about 40 to 50 had got to me. So I basically told my staff that if they were becoming very demanding, if it had been more than sort of 8 weeks, that they would come to me and then I would deal with them. I think probably we've got about 5 or 6 that were 14 days, I want my money back. That's as simple as it is, and that was hard to kind of just get that across. But to be honest, I was brutally honest with a lot of customers. I said, we're in a position where we pass the money on to suppliers, and until we get it back, we just cannot physically pass it on. Prior to COVID, I would have paid money back before we received it from suppliers quite regularly on a customer service basis just to make sure that we did it. But with the level that we had, it's just impossible to do that. So I was quite open and honest with customers and said, this is just how the situation is. I'd love to be able to get it back to you now, but I will give you assurances that you will get it back, and I will give you assurances that we will work as hard as we can to push. Let's say that the cruise industry has been brilliant. I think, even where we've seen key contacts furloughed, we've always been given other key contacts to deal with. They've always been receptive. They've always answered emails. They've always answered their phones when I've been talking to them and chasing them. And I think that's been really important to get the messaging right to us as agents with how we deal with this. A bit like we're starting to see a sort of bit of a resurgence for 2021. Even did a world cruise for 2022 last week, which was really pleasing to see. I think it's then just obviously 2020. I think is with P&O coming out with their news today that they're sort of pausing up until the middle of October now. A lot of our cruises that we already had booked in the summer have already changed and already rebooked for next year anyway. So I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, but it's now just getting people confident to book for whenever they all relaunch.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? And the fact that you are put as a part of the chain, isn't it? With the monies, like if it's not coming to you, it's not quite coming on. There must be real sort of frustrations. I suppose, Mary, how are you seeing any sort of light at the end of the refunds tunnel at the moment, like the other guys, or?
Yeah, well, pretty much the same story as the guys, but I suppose I'll go to a good story at the moment, and I have to thank Michael O'Leary from Ryanair, because he got, he announced he is going to be flying at 40% load factors in July, so it got a great interest, and there was a lot of surveys done just prior to before Michael O'Leary announced this, and 17% of the survey said they would look at going on holidays this year. So what we've done as a business, I have to thank Michael O'Leary first of all, because he has stimulated the market, and the airlines have put out really good videos, safety videos. Aer Lingus and Ryanair in particular put out videos that have been shared across social media, what it's going to look like. And actually, I myself have actually looked in Bloomberg and put up some domestic travel within the States, and I was blown away. There was this young girl who traveled at a full flight, what way the airports are handling it and everything. So that's interesting to see. But going back to our customer, which is really, really important. And I think it's really important that we all do the right thing. And customers have been incredibly patient, in particular anybody who was due to travel March, April, May. And the time it's taking to do refunds is just not acceptable. And I understand it's unprecedented times, but I think the damage that is done to consumers is just really awful, and it's not right. And it's not right for our staff either. They're constantly getting hassled. Like my colleagues, you can do a certain amount of stuff and give out, but if you were to give money out and you haven't got it back, you wouldn't be around. It's not possible to do that. So I think some cruise companies have been very quick. The Royal brand in particular has been very good, and I've really admired Richard Vane putting up his videos, constant communication, celebrity, Joe Ramoski putting up her videos. So they've been quick to turn around different things. But then there's been other cruise companies that are 120 days, and you know what, the consumer doesn't understand. Their holiday has been cancelled. So I would like to see the process moved faster. Because I think for us in Tour American Cruise Holidays, 25% of my business is cruise holidays. We are 65% repeat business, and that's damaging to our repeat business. And even though we're talking to our customers and saying, thank you for bearing with us, thank you to our staff for constantly explaining, there's a fine line, and it's running tight. And we do have the credit notes, and they're official in Ireland, where you can give someone a credit note, which is covered under your license and bond, which means their money's protected. And then after 6 months, if they still haven't got their money, they can get the full refund. And I suppose, Tom, that's our big story really for us agents, is what's the difference between booking with us and booking directly with an airline or a cruise company. And our value proposition is around the fact we are licensed and bonded. No matter what happens, me or my colleagues in travel, the client's money is always protected, and that's a really strong point. So yeah, very like Edwina, very like Paul, like to see the right thing being done. We've worked on our strategy, worst case scenario, writing off 2020. I hated doing that, but that is what we had to do. And we're seeing a good interest for 2021, but it will not be like 2019 figures. So if we got close, I'd be very happy. I don't see that happening. So, we're getting bookings in, there's good interest, but it's going to take a while to get things back, because nobody knows what they're going to on holidays. Nobody knows what a cruise ship's going to be like. Yeah. So there's a bit of testing the water in that term. So I'm actually very happy for someone to go Christmas time or go in 2021, because I'm quite comfortable that they will get the 100% of the holiday that they deserve and they've booked with us.
There's some real positive notes there in terms of looking ahead, but I just wanted to sort of touch on the refunds sort of thorn in the side there with Edwina and Paul's. Are you seeing a similar thing to Mary? You're seeing certain lines are playing ball and getting things done really quickly, and others are sort of dragging their feet? Obviously, perhaps you don't want to name any names, but are you seeing a similar thing across the board?
I think the issue for the client, I mean, there are different situations, aren't there? There are clients that actually need the money for whatever reason. Their circumstances have changed. They are desperate to get the money in, and they they have to have their money back. There just isn't any question. But for the majority of my clients, it's not that they actually need the money, it's the anxiety that goes with the, okay, well, why are they not refunding me? Because in their heads, they're still in the, you're not getting a refund under normal circumstances. And that immediately rings alarm bells about, okay, is the company in trouble? Is it going to go under? Am I going to lose my money altogether? So the big thing that they're looking for is a real facts, reassurance, and treating them as grown-ups. So when it does escalate, as Paul says, there are only few that come sort of up to me because my team are looking after them so well. But what we really know is that talking to the client, adult to adult, explaining to them exactly what's happening, making sure they understand, okay, well, your refund's approved, it's got to go to this level and at this level, and to be able to say, you're not going to get it until so-and-so, but to feel confident that on that date, they are going to get it. That's the important thing. And the real frustrating thing is when your principal is telling you, okay, well, we've got a 3-week delay and that's when they're going to come out, and then they don't come. So that we're being made liars of. That's the really tricky thing to cope with.
Have you had a similar situation, Paul? I know you said that you're sort of, really going to customers and explaining things, but do customers come with their worries of they'll watch like a consumer show and they'll say, oh, I heard about this company, or is it just constantly sort of firefighting in a way? Or
yeah, definitely. I think customers are genuinely worried, as you say. It's that anxiety that they feel like they're going to potentially lose their money. And I think a lot of the times when I have had to get involved, and if I've emailed them and I have written down on an email and said, you have my assurance, your refund is coming.
In writing, yeah, it's there.
In writing, and that does actually solve a lot of the issues with where they were going to go. A lot of customers are very patient and are completely understanding. And, again, I've talked around that this isn't a normal situation. Some cruise lines have gone from dealing with maybe 50 to 100 amendments and cancellations a week to suddenly tens of thousands. So it isn't necessarily cash flow that's the problem. It is actually being able to process and get through these. It is the communication that's the key, though, as you say. If a supplier has said that it's going to be 30 days, 60 days, we need to make sure we deliver on that, because that's what my staff are telling the customers. And then if we don't get that, that's where the negativity comes on where it is. We've had some lovely emails and phone calls from customers as well when we've given them refunds, and they've been so thankful for the communication that we've given them and talking them through and giving them that reassurance. But it's breaking what they would class as those promises that we want to give them when some of these lead times are 8 to 12 weeks. When we tell them that I'm really sorry, but it is going to be 8 to 10 weeks. And I said to my guys right from the outset, never be afraid to apologize, because we are genuinely sorry that we cannot give these people their money back quicker than we're being able to do it, and that's completely heartfelt from us. We're incredibly sorry, and I know everyone else in the industry is the same. We're sorry we can't give it back at the moment, but the processes and the situations don't do it. But once we set out that timeline of this is when we want to do it, that's what we've then got to make sure that we follow up on.
Yeah, you want to deliver it by that, don't you? If you promise it, it's reputation, isn't it? But on to sort of more. Sorry, everyone's probably so sick of talking about refunds, aren't they? But on to more sort of positive thing. I know you talked about the. Was it you say it was a 2022 World Cruise? Was it, or 21 World Cruise? Yeah,
2022 World Cruise. Customer rang up one of our branches. It was about 4:45 in the evening. Said, like, I'm fed up. I want to have something to look forward to. Gave one of my consultants the cruise inquiry. 25 minutes later, job done. And they don't come along that often at the moment. So to get one like that is really great. And I think we've definitely seen, all right, with the quarantine news over the last couple of weeks, that's slowed down a little bit, especially land holidays rather than cruise. But for 2021, to begin with, the majority of it was rebooks. So it was ones that had been cancelled. We're using the future cruise credits. We did a huge amount of those. And we are still doing some of those, but a huge amount. But what we're trying to do, and we're monitoring it every week, I sort of give the guys an update of genuine new business. And that's what we've got to look for, because as I start reopening shops and you know, we've got quite a few staff on furlough, to be able to bring those back, I've got to prove that we've got new business. As much as there's a lot of work to do with the rebooks and also the cancellations, that's not making us any money. Not that we didn't already have banked as such anyway. So it's the new business is absolutely instrumental.
And do you think you sort of tip the scales a little bit? Is becoming more, because I know there was a huge mountain, wasn't there, of credits and amendments to get through. Do you think you're sort of trying to tip the scales towards new business now? Do you think, Paul?
Yeah, we're still slightly, rebooks are slightly ahead of new business at the moment, but I think we're getting close to that. I would hope in June that's going to tip the other side and new business will start outgrowing rebooks. I think I worked out that in July and August, out of all of our business, nearly 60% of it already has cancelled or rebooked for next year. So even ones where it wasn't quite, the pause wasn't on, or the likes of TUI and Jet2 haven't cancelled yet, customers were taking advantage of the change options and were moving. So we haven't got as much to change or cancel now, which does give us the hope that we will start being able to concentrate more on that new business.
That's great stuff, isn't it? A real sort of positive note. I just wanted to say, if anyone watching on Facebook, if they had any questions for our panel, please just do comment below, and we'll try and get to them. I think that sort of Mary alluded to it there, sort of regarding 2020 and sort of sales for this year. How difficult do you all think that 2020 is now? I think obviously Paul mentioned the P&O news into October. Edwina, do you think that 2020 is a, I say the word write-off, but it's a real hard sell at the moment for this year?
So remember, we're cruise only, so we are completely dependent on whether or not the cruise lines are operating. So to me, Mary was saying earlier, towards the end of the year, I'm confident for Q4. However, I think we have two types of clients. There are, on the one hand, the people who say, just as soon as anything's going, let me know, we're going to book. They just can't. They're desperate to get back on board, whatever, wherever, it doesn't matter to them. And then there are others who, particularly the destination-focused people, who say, well, okay, that cruise is doing the itinerary that I want, but I don't know how that's going to work, and whether I'm going to be able to see everything I want, and am I going to invest my holiday money into something that doesn't actually work out how I want it to be. So they have the confidence to go back on board, but they want to wait and see how it works out before they make their decisions.
Mary, are you slightly more, I say, pessimistic, or do you think that sort of 2020, there's no point perhaps in investing resource because it might not come off? Or
if I'm being 100% honest, I think Christmas will come off. I think there's going to be a big demand. What we made a decision on, rightly or wrongly, and we have worked with the team very early on, move all the bookings to 2021 if you can. So we were contacting, I think we're up to the end of August now, where you can move, we'll move you free of charge, just move your deposit or whatever to 2021. And that's for different reasons, because I would be, again, fearful somebody not getting 100% of what they should get. But I am seeing a very good interest for cruises for 2021. So that's very positive. And I think the cruise companies will do a really good job on safety and all the requirements. There's no doubt about that. I just need to see what it looks like. And I'm trying to watch any videos or YouTube, so just to try and get an insight of what it's going to be like. So I'd love if one of the cruise companies would put up what they think it's going to be like, because I know it's going to be different, but still going to be a great holiday, and it's one I will do. The biggest issue we have, Tom, is there is good demand for 2021. However, if you look 11 months out, there's not flights there to match that. So it's a shame the airlines didn't think about this and put their schedule out further on. And that's the biggest issue, is we would get bookings for the summer if the flights were out. So, you can't get it until 11 months out. And I think that has been, even with Virgin Atlantic, we don't even have net fares with them. We can't contact anyone. They're all on furlough. Really, in this day with home working and stuff, that shouldn't be, business should carry on. So I would think there's opportunities, but it's, they have to get from A to B. And there is an interest in cruises. And what's great about cruises is you can book it into 2022, but people are worried about how they're going to get there. So yeah, I'm looking at 2021 as being okay, good. From a retail point of view, we have 2 offices in Dublin, the only cruise shop in Dublin, in Tour America and Cork, and then Orlando. I am going to take my time opening up, because logistically, for the safety of my staff, A lot of them have to travel, so they're going to have to get on public transportation. For customers, unless it's appointment only, but that's why we have Zoom set up, and that's doing very well. The appointments are face-to-face on a Zoom call where we go through all the documentation with our customers. So I'm not 100% sure yet where I stand on retail. I think travel is going to be very different for us all. I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens. You know, have we got through this? Is the disease something that kind of has long? So I think all those, you know, with the Irish, more importantly with the global economy. And if you're watching currency, quite interesting. You know, I watch the euro versus the US dollar. I'm a bit like a hedge funder. I've never sold. So it's really important that, you know, our markets stay strong and there's a good demand. They're not spending it.
Yeah, no, I think that's the point, isn't it? Really. And I wanted to say for the next challenge we have is probably reopening, right? I suppose, Paul, with all your branches, is that sort of the next challenge within a number of challenges? As sort of Mary alluded to, that she was in no sort of rush to open up and using a lot of virtual and video stuff. Are you looking at the same, and sort of what's the plan for opening up branches in the next sort of few weeks?
Yeah, we've been looking at that well for quite a few weeks now, but like Mary said, we've got a virtual appointment system now, which we've rolled out and we're offering out. But quite a high proportion of our sales are face to face, and that's been one of the things I think that holds us back. It's a service industry. A lot of our customers are not specifically booking with our brand, Fred Olsen Travel. They're not booking with a particular store. They're booking with a particular consultant. They might have booked with them for 10, 15, 20 years. And that's been one of the challenges is how do we re-engage that? So I've been working over the last few weeks about some reopening schedules. We're not going to reopen every branch on the 15th of June, although we might be ready. I've got a kind of a manifesto that we're going to put together on how, as staff, we're going to sort of have our branches, how we're going to act, how we're going to safely do it. It will be a closed door policy, appointment service, but we feel that we can open safely, but it's when is the right time to do that. A couple of my branches might open earlier, so I've got two which are in department stores, and they're already talking that they will open that week, but on shorter hours. It will be one-way systems. So potentially that first week, I will probably, one of them's in Norwich where I live, so I will probably go and open that branch. I won't take the phone calls. The staff will still do that from home, but I can then be involved. I can see how the city centre starts reopening. Mm-hmm. I can see how our procedures and policies and the safety equipment that we're going to put in place, how that compares to other areas. And then over the next couple of weeks, we'll look at some of our stores which are have their own car parks, for example, which again will make it easier for appointment services, that they haven't got to go into town and park in a multi-storey. And we'll see how those go. And it will just be almost a phased reopening based on how we can do it as safely as possible, both for the staff and also for the customers. There's rightly so. There's a lot of worry out there. Personally, I've been at home. I've been working at my garage because it's a quiet place away from the family, and I've been here for 10 weeks now. So getting back into normal life will be challenging for everybody. But I think everyone knows that there's going to be a lot that we will be doing differently, as in social distancing, hygiene practices, and we've already put together some documents on how we do that. And then I think as we can reopen, we will continue to offer the virtual appointment services as well, because I think that's actually, especially our demographic is 65 plus, and for that age group there may be some concern about coming into major towns and cities, so we'll still very much have that going. And that also gives us the opportunity that as we start bringing more staff back, because we've got quite a few on furlough leave, even in stores where we potentially might have had 4 or 5 staff, that due to social distances now we can probably only have 2 or 3, we can still retain those staff because we can still do what we've been doing for the last 10 weeks from home. We can still do phone calls, we can still do virtual appointments. So that's our hope for the future anyway.
And Edwina, are you looking to bring staff back as well and sort of get people?
Well, we are looking to reopen on the 15th of June, but I don't think that many staff will resume working at that time because we're central London. But more or less everybody is coming on the tube. I can't imagine how the tubes are going to cope with that. You know, we were saying earlier that even in the best of times, then as a rule, there are huge queues outside Oxford Circus Tube every evening. How they will work if they're distanced furthermore, I just can't see it. So until we get some clarity on how that's going to work, I think a lot of our staff will feel anxious or reluctant to commit themselves to the tube. And we're fortunate in that the majority of our business is telephone sales or by appointment, so we can manage that. But the office is ready. We've done the work that we need to do in terms of distancing. We certainly couldn't have everybody back in the office, but that's just not an issue for us at the moment. So yeah, it's good.
Oh, good. So it seems like a sort of a phased reopening and then a phased restarting for cruise lines as well. Edwina, if I just stay with you, how do you think, in what guise sort of lines might start to restart operations? Do you think it'll be different from ocean to expedition to luxury to river? Or
I think river obviously is going to be the first, and those domestic river operators and continental Europe are going to lead the way, which is great for the river operators we work with, because they'll be able to watch and learn from their issues and mistakes. River is much easier to get back up and running anyway, because the crew are, as a rule, sort of on the spot. They're in Europe, so they don't have those terrible challenges with crew movements from all over the world. They are smaller operations anyway, so I think that those systems that the river cruise operators put in place will be leading the way, and I would expect river to resume as a rule from about September, so I'm looking forward to that. Ocean, I think there's some fantastic ideas coming up. There's a lot of information dripping out, but the best thing of all is the way in which the cruise lines are working collaboratively within the umbrella structure of CLIA and employing health experts and medical experts, and really determined to get it absolutely right. And they're not prepared to say it's going to be like this until they know exactly how it is going to be. I think that they will lead the world. I think they will be, I think actually there will be no safer place to be than on board a cruise ship. Everybody who's worried should just go and live on a cruise ship. I'll book them, it's fine.
You should lead the PR campaign. This is great. But yeah, I think Paul mentioned it last time around, actually sort of from the health and hygiene point of view, the way that lines should be sort of promoting themselves and using that as a real message. From what you've heard in the last sort of month or few weeks, Paul, are you hearing sort of better messages from the lines, and they're being sort of as vocal as they can in showing what they could doing, and what obviously policies aren't sort of like finalized now, but are you confident that you can sort of pass that message on to customers that they're sort of giving it a great look at?
Yeah, and I think all of the cruise leaders will help with that. Norwegian Cruise Line's already talking about it, Royal Caribbean, P&O, Paul Ludlow, when I listened to his video this day, it's all about that message of getting the health and safety right. Already hygiene standards were fantastic on board those ships, but obviously they've got a lot of work to do PR wise to get that confidence back in where we want to go. One of the issue is social distancing. I actually think cruise ships are pretty well built for flows of customers. It might make people have to move slightly differently, but ultimately you could have a clockwise directional walk around to get through the corridors and stuff like that. I think that would be fairly easy to manage on that way. They've been leading the way in terms of hand sanitizer and technology with the medallions and stuff like this in recent times, which actually again tracks customer flows and sort of does that. It's then going to be about the experiences that people really enjoy about cruising, and some of that will be food and drink. How will that look? One will be entertainment. How will that look? And then also, I think the biggest one that they'll need to sort of come out with a really positive message is getting on and off the ship. How are they going to manage that? Because I think that will be probably one of the biggest hurdles they have. I think we've all probably experienced big queues at Southampton or Barcelona or Rome or anywhere like this where we're sort of getting on and off ships, which social distancing just isn't possible at the moment. So it's just how they're gonna manage that and how they're gonna go through it. But I think the fact that they're all coming together under Clear and they've got some real key industry people in that now is brilliant. And I genuinely hope, I think we will see a bigger uptake in 2021 business once we start seeing more positivity, as you say. If we can see some videos of what it's going to be like, how they're going to do it. I agree with some of the airlines have come out with some great things, airports again, how we're going to work, how we're going to do things. And that will bring customers back. They won't forget, they'll just adapt slightly and they'll change their patterns, as we all are now. When we're walking down the street, we're crossing the road, if we see people, we're all adapting, and we'll do that on our holidays going forward as well.
Yeah, and Mary, that's something you said at the start, isn't it? You said that airlines have been great, sort of putting out videos and saying, you'll sit here and this will be like, and crew will do this, and these will be the procedures. You think that cruise lines should really sort of, obviously, like I said, things aren't finalised yet, but they should sort of take the front foot on that and say, perhaps this might be the way. And as sort of Paul gave some great examples there, I think they should sort of definitely take the sort of the clockwise movement around the ship on board. Who knows? But yeah, do you think that's up to the lines to do their own sort of PR campaign now and show people what it might be like cruising in the future?
Yeah, I think it's important to probably do that now. There's one issue for the cruise companies. I mean, anybody who's cruised before will know it's a fantastic holiday. It's the new to cruise market that's going to really pay a price. So there's going to be a lot of work over the next year or two. I think that market is going to be very tender. So I think they have to do a huge amount of work of showing what it's like and experience. The only issue really is the sea days as well. So it's the logistics of, so I'm even thinking, I always put myself in a consumer's shoes, to be quite honest. So if I go on holidays on a cruise, what will the experience be like? And so therefore trying to understand what the consumer will experience. So I suppose, the fact of the buffet. So if the buffet's gone, what is the cruise ship going to be like? What is the experience for the customers going to be like? The sea days, what are the beds going to be like around the pool? What way? So I think there are questions that have to be addressed and answered. And once we visually see that, then we can sell it. Because they are fabulous ships, and I talk about them all. And I've been on them all, and I'm part of the Travel Agents Advisory panel with Clea, and it's fantastic. And the information's fantastic, and these are billion-dollar ships. They're great, and as Edwina said, they're the best holiday to have. But our job is to get that message out, and we have to work with the cruise companies on the positive PR. And there's going to be a lot of hard work because they got battered the most. And for us, when I talk about the initial cruise ship that was stranded, I won't mention names because it's not good to do that. But you saw the dip in cruises once that happened. So it was seen as an incubator. And we need to turn that around. And having been on many cruise holidays, I go on one myself with my family, with my 11-year-old son. It is a fantastic holiday. It's safe, it's clean, everything about it. But the airlines have done a great job on talking about the filters that they have, these filters, it's the safest place to travel. We need the cruise companies to come up with the same message, that message. What do they have? A new technology that makes the air conditioning units safe. And that's because at the end of the day, the safety message is the most important message. And then once we get that message, I think we'll do a great job of getting it out to our customers. But we have to be truthful and honest. And, it's not about always making profits. It's about really giving our very valued customers a good holiday and an honest holiday. So once we get that message, we can get it out for them.
And I wanted to ask if you guys, I think Mary alluded to it in terms of the new to cruise market, and that's such a buoyant market. It was growing and growing and growing, whether it will need that investment and that sort of help to grow it. Do you think perhaps there will be sort of discounting now, especially perhaps some of the ocean lines, to restart the market, or do you think that they can't afford to? So looking at Edwina as a reason, I'll perhaps ask you in a minute, but do you think that they can't sort of afford to discount because the industry's so been badly hit, or do you think to entice people to try it, they will have to discount? Edwina, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that as we all know, cruises are so undervalued in any case. It's time pricing went up. Secondly, I think that whatever happens, initially the cruise lines are going to have to reduce their passenger capacities, which means that pricing is going to go up. Thirdly, they're going to have to introduce all these new health and safety measures, which are going to be expensive. And finally, we have no idea what air costs are going to be like. And likewise, I would expect those to go up. So I think that the whole theory that maybe in the same way as when we're going into recession, there's going to be all these bargains and just hang tight and look for bargains. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that what will happen is a really positive regrouping where cruising actually becomes priced more realistically in terms of what you get for your money, and that people who are looking for security and cleanliness and a great holiday will recognize that that is fantastic value. And what we'll see in terms of incentives will be onboard credits or upgrades or all the things that we've seen that aren't money off things. I hope that's how it will be anyway.
Yeah, it won't be sort of money off the headline price. It'll be, yeah, or sort of added extras. And because, Paul, do you think perhaps maybe in recent years it's been a bit of a race to the bottom in terms of there's so much competition, isn't there? So people are trying to entice people onto their ships. But do you think that will be obviously good for the industry if prices keep high, but will it also be a difficult sell as an agent to get people into book if they're sort of wary? Do you think that, you know, price might come down to it, or do you think it's all about how the lines react with their onboard policies?
Yeah, I think it's how they sell it is the key thing. I do think there has been a bit too much discounting recently with sort of some of the lines. Most of the cruise lines that I've spoken to are selling really well for 2021. A lot of them are ahead of where they were for 2020 and 2019. A lot of that's because so many people are moving forward. So I just cannot see that there'll be a mass discounting, a mass rush to just sell beds, because ultimately people will want to go. I think also what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to probably launch 2022 earlier to start getting that movement going, because I know we've got customers who cruise 4 or 5 times a year. So they haven't just had one holiday impacted, they've had 3, 4, even 5 holidays impacted. We're putting out a survey to our customers this week to talk about when they're going to be ready to book, when they're going to be looking to travel, where they're going to be looking to travel, to again just try and get a bit more of a feel from them. But I think when it does come back, people will be prepared to pay for the right things. It just won't be the same as it was, where it was just we're trying to stack out as many people on these ships as possible, and then hoping it's right. Actually, if you can get the cost right at the beginning point, and people understand, you know, luxury's been doing that really well for years. It's not about the start price, it's about what it includes. And I think they've got to start doing that across mainstream cruise as well on a much bigger scale to again just enhance the fact of what is included. Because, you know, some of the cruises that we've sold in the past couple of years, it's just too cheap for what you're selling sometimes a 7-night cruise for. It's ridiculous for what they're getting, and I think customers would be prepared to pay for those cruises once we've got back sailing again.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the idea of sort of an industry regrouping, because it's good for lines, it's good for agents, isn't it? Sort of especially around price. And I wanted to, I think, Paul, you mentioned there about the survey to customers and seeing sort of getting their advice. Mary, what would you sort of say to customers, and how are you sort of marketing now? Are you putting loads of offers out? Is it a case of just sort of checking in with them, seeing what they like and when they want to travel? So what's your sort of strategy at the moment?
Well, just getting back to Paul's point, there was a survey done in Dublin on a show, and it was done, a really good survey to how many people would travel this year. So 17% of the population said they'd look at traveling this year. Now, Michael O'Leary has helped that, announcing, you know, the 40% load factors. But it just brings me to load factors. So you've got to look at a cruise company, what percentage do they need to be at to break even? And I think it's in the high 80s or 85. So they need their ships to be full. So I, like Edwina and Paul, think there's no point in discounting. You only go to the bottom. Like, I mean, and it is good value. However, they are going to probably have to fill their ships to make money. So I think there's a balance here. I think, you know, you've got certain brands that will hold on or get higher prices. And then the new to cruise market, just getting back to that, is really important to the cruise companies. So they're going to have to stimulate that market. So how they could do that is you could do mini cruises, like 3-night, 4-night, to get the market going. And they could be at low prices. But it is good value. There's, you know, but they will have to look at pricing. They're going to have to get ships up to a level. They're not going to run the ships at a loss. They can't, you know, and so I don't know what I think that's going to be an issue for them. I, like my colleagues, don't want to see prices dropped. I see a lot of companies come in particular from the UK, and trash the market. And they're really, you know, at the end of the day, if the margin goes down low, it's not, there's no value. We've never been like that. We just sell the experience, try and go for the suite class, literally looking at what the customer wants. Alaska's doing well, you know, what are the demands, and what cruise companies are we getting the best feedback, what customers are saying, because we're on a net performing score. So we don't do FIFA where it's at the beginning when you give your money you get 5-star because they've given you your money. We do it at the end when they're back, and our net performing score, you know, is very high. And so we need our partners to provide outstanding service. So that's the most important, that we get them back, because the first booking isn't important to us, it's the second booking. So we want repeat business and grow. We're very niche. So there's a fine line between, you know, price and what you get.
That's it, isn't it? It's that sort of eternal trade-off, isn't it, between sort of experience, price, and making sales, I suppose. I suppose I wanted to ask you, you're all such fantastic advocates of cruise, and you all speak so passionately about it. In terms of lines using agents when they restart, do you think, perhaps Paul, do you think that it would be great if the lines invited loads of your staff on board as you know, sort of ambassadors, and to give that message? Do you think that that's a real good sort of place for lines to get sort of new cruise ambassadors when the public are a little bit perhaps wary, or, you know, agents who can really shout about it and explain the differences and things that they've put in place?
Yeah, 100%. I think understanding cruise, you can only really do it once you actually experience cruise. I joined Fred Olsen Travel just over 11 years ago. I'd already spent about 11 years in the trade, but I'd only ever sold one cruise before I joined Fred's. I spent the first year just trying to experience every ship I could, whether it was ship visits, whether it was educationals. Almost, I think it would be fantastic if once new protocols, new procedures are put in place, if we could be part of experiencing that, because it will be us telling customers about them that will make the difference between getting those sales or not getting those sales. We invest a lot of time and money in sending staff on cruises, doing educationals, doing the clear events and bits and pieces. And I think a relaunch event where they could explain, go through the processes, this is how we're doing it, would be fantastic for the industry.
And Edwina, would you agree? Because obviously with the luxury sector, that's kind of a lot of changes as well, isn't it? As opposed to probably more than most, perhaps.
And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with the adult to adult conversation with your clients in every way. If you're able to give them the full facts in an authoritative way, then that's going to build your relationship with them, and they're going to trust you, and they're going to feel happy about rebooking. So it is a client has a great radar for when you're not completely confident about what you're saying.
I think there's a certain word for that, isn't there? I think.
Yeah. No, I sort of thought, I've got to divert. I see.
Yeah.
But you need to really be able to give them the full facts so that they can feel confident.
No, that's great. And it might be quite a difficult sort of question to wrap up here, but perhaps Mary, I'll go for you first. In terms of your sort of hopes for the next sort of 12 months and where you think the industry might be, I suppose, do we necessarily think that the main players now will still be where they are? Do you think it totally depends on how people react to it and how they bring along the trade when they do start and when they can restart? What do you think?
Well, I hope everybody's there in 12 months' time, to be quite honest, because I think there's room for everyone. I think it's really tough for the airlines, the cruise companies and travel companies and tour operators at the moment. So it's very different than any other business. So our industry has definitely been hit the hardest. And if you think about it, when everybody closed, if we owned a coffee shop, we could close our doors and stop, but we all had to take care of our customers. And in particular, the cruise companies as well, dealing with thousands of staff, having them to, get them home. And it has been really tough time. So I really do hope, because there's a great product out there, that all cruise companies, I don't know if all airlines will survive. I think it's really tough what they've gone through. And I don't know if all travel agents or tour operators will survive. However, there is an opportunity to really take care of a customer. And again, I think, I truly hope this happens, that customers remember the good companies and the companies that took care of them, and that they book with them for that reason. So it's not a $5 cheaper or something that they go somewhere else. So I really hope that that type of integrity that's happened within our travel industry, and I can only talk because I know all the travel agents in Ireland. We're a small country. We've 4.5 million of a population. There's 200 travel agents. I compete with them all, but I have to honestly say, with my hand in my heart, they have all stepped up, and we've worked together, and we've taken care of our customers. And it has been stressful and very hard financially on every single travel company. And I hope that they all make it. I think they've done a good job. And Ireland is a small place. It's about relationships. It's about trust, that our brand represents trust. And all these companies that we work with, the ones that have done all the right things, there are some companies that haven't done the right things, that we remember our suppliers that have been good to us as well. And I think that's, yeah, I hope everybody, I think it's strange times. I hope everybody makes it. I would be a girl glass half full. So I think there's been a great lesson throughout the world. I think, you know, it's been important to kind of come off the cog at times for us all, and to reevaluate our lives, what we're doing. And for me personally, it's been a great time. It's been a hard time, but I'm starting to meditate in the morning, you know, doing a lot of things that are good as well, educating, studying, and working hard. And I want my business to be around for the next 10 years. I started from my sitting room with no money and built a business over 25 years. I've put my whole life into it. I've run it as a business, on a lifestyle. So I want to be around for 10, 15 years. Maybe then I'll retire.
I thought that was great. It was look 12 months ahead, and then look sort of 20 years. I like that.
No, you have to.
You have to, exactly, yeah. And Paul, do you think in terms of the next year, you think when lines do resume, it might be sort of cruising slightly closer to home, perhaps initially ex-UK, or what sort of some of your hopes? And again, Mary made a great point about sort of imbuing that customer confidence, isn't it, in your team, to sort of see them through these tough times.
Yeah, I think it probably will be close to home to begin with. That's where I see, and I think it'd be interesting to see what itineraries might sort of change and adapt next year on where it wants to be. I do think, you know, the travel industry is such an adaptable and resilient industry. Like Mary, I think we've been hit hardest out of anyone else. You know, the whole country's been brought to its knees over this, but I've seen a lot of it on social media. If you look at the travel industry, it's like a restaurant not only closing down for 3 months, but refunding all of their customers from the previous 12 months of every sort of meal that they cooked for them. That's where we've sort of found ourselves in, and we've still managed to find ways of surviving and working through and positively looking at where we're going to go in the future. I think it'll be, you know, it will be difficult for all tour operators, travel agents, airlines and cruise lines to make it through, but I think all of them are well placed to adapt their businesses, work through what they want to do, and come out the other side with that message. As a travel agent, the real positive thing for me is that travel agents can sell what's selling. So if Europe's selling, we can sell Europe. If America's selling, we can sell America. If cruise is selling, we can sell cruise. If flights are selling, we can sell flights. So it makes us more adaptable than maybe some of the suppliers can be. And the fact that already my business was, you know, our average lead time was anywhere between 6 and 8 months. So, you know, in a couple of months' time, when hopefully the country's on a better standing, better footing, we're feeling more confident, we won't be worried that actually there's no cruise to sell for the next couple of months, or sailing for the next couple of months, because we will just be booking 2021. And hopefully if they launch 2022 early, then we can start selling that really well as well.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And Edwina, sort of final thought to you then. Paul mentioned adaptability. Do you think that's basically the crux of it with cruise lines when they come back? I suppose they'll all be these big billion-dollar companies, will all be sort of startups in a way, won't they? I suppose. Yeah,
no, it's quite interesting, isn't it? That it is like okay, we're blank sheet of paper. We're back to zero. Who's going to race ahead now? Which cruise line's going to do what? Now, of course, given that our business is mainly focused on the top end, the luxury lines, they're dependent on a lot of different markets. And if everyone wants close to home, what are they going to do about that? You know, maybe specific ships will separate out UK, US, Australia. We'll certainly see a lot more close to home business initially. I think the other thing is that when a customer commits to doing a journey that might be a little bit stressful in terms of the flights, then they're going to plan to be away for longer. So I think what we'll see is that they will trade up, maybe do fewer trips, but trade up on the ones that they are doing. And we're certainly beginning to see that now. People going for, you know, rather than one cruise, they'll do 2 or 3 back to back, because that makes it worthwhile. And, you know, like Mary, it is a question of thinking in the longer term. I mean, this year we celebrate our 50th anniversary. This wasn't how I was planning my 50th year to be. That wasn't exactly what I'd anticipated. But we were the first cruise-only agency in the world, and we plan to still be there in another 50 years. Why not? Maybe.
That's brilliant. We've gone from 20 years to 50 years. What a nice way to wrap up. But yeah, thank you all. I hope everyone watching on Facebook has enjoyed the conversation today. I certainly have. It's been really insightful and really interesting. And yeah, we're just about to leave Facebook now, but please tune in next week for the latest, also the next edition of Agent Matters. And yeah, everyone keep up the fantastic work you're all doing. So goodbye to everyone on Facebook now.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks very much. Bye.